Hello, good morning. This is Faith at Faith and Books. How are you doing? We are back from our vacation. We got back yesterday late afternoon, and it was a fun and interesting time. But I thought I would do just kind of a June wrap up. And I have three things for three different reading challenges or reading events. The first is, and I can't show you the book because I couldn't find it I'm still unpacking, but it's Hornblower. I finished Ship of the Line, which was my June read, but I messed up and I skipped Hornblower during the crisis. And so I'm kind of out of whack. So I don't know. I think people have different reads for June. But for June, for me, it was Ship of the Line. And this is the second book in the original trilogy. So the original trilogy this is the Hornblower series by C.S. Forster. We're doing a reading challenge this year from January to November. And Mark Richardson at Richardson Reads is co-hosting as well. This one was the middle one of the original trilogy. So the trilogy is Beat to Quarters, Ship of the Line, and then the next one, Flying Colors. And I think these were all written back in the 40s. I should look that up. I don't have the physical book with me, and I don't want to mess with my Kindle. Anyway, it was exciting. It was typical. He's still dealing, Hornblower is still dealing with his marriage to Maria. He's leaving Maria again. This time he's a post captain of the Sutherland, which is a ship of the line, as you might be able to tell from the title of the book. And she's pregnant again. And he's fallen in love with Lady Barbara, who has married Admiral Layton. And that's his admiral. That's the commanding admiral for him. So that's kind of awkward. And he's trying to be faithful to Maria, really. And poor Maria is pregnant again, and Hornblower's going off again, at least for 2 years. And so there's lots of exciting battles. I like Forster in that he doesn't get too gruesome, but at the same time, you know that battles are violent and people die and the threat of death is always there. So I thought it was a pretty good book. It's a cliffhanger ending. So right away, last night I started reading the next one, Flying Colors. Wait, I can look on this and see when it was originally published. Oh, 1938. 1938. So yeah, it wasn't the 40s, it was the 30s. So anyway, I started reading this. I only got to page 15. But it picks up right where the Ship of the Line finishes. So I really enjoyed, as usual, I'm enjoying Hornblower. I just think he's a fun character. He's an interesting character. He's got a lot of flaws, and he's got a lot of brilliant talent and instincts. So he's kind of complicated. And it's just a good historical novel. You really feel that you're in that time period. And I don't know why, because it's not like I'm especially nautical, but I tend to enjoy things set at sea. So yeah, so I'm enjoying Hornblower, and I finished up Ship of the Line before the end of June, and I'm already starting Flying Colors. And this is going to be part of Jane Austen July as well, because one of the prompts was read historical fiction set in that time period, and this is. So that's both Hornblower and Jane Austen July. The other books that I finished reading this book. This was for Historathon. And this is 1491, New Revelations of the Americas Before Columbus by Charles C. Mann. This is the second edition. And overall, I enjoyed this book. I learned a lot. I did not know that much, and I learned a lot. This book is just absolutely laden with facts and information, and it's just a compilation of every archaeological thought about the Americas. And sometimes it was information overload, and I found it kind of a slog. I also did not like the way he organized the book. He went back and forth in time, and he went all over the two continents. And I didn't understand. I couldn't follow his train of thought. Like, I just didn't get the organization, and I actually found it confusing because what he would do is he would go on and on for pages and pages about a particular theory about something, like say the Incas or something. And and it's very, very, fact laden. So I'd be learning all this new stuff, and then he'd go, oh, but now we have a new theory. And then there would be something that would refute the other. And it just served to confuse me because it was just too much information for me to take in. And the first thing that I read would stick with me, and I wouldn't recall what the refutation was very well. I wish, for me, it would have been better if he had said, this is the current thinking on this particular subject, say the Incas. And then he could say, but in the past, we have this theory. Like, that would have been a lot clearer. But he was just jumping all over the place. And he, like, all the time periods were mixed up. He didn't do things really chronologically very much. So anyway, I found it confusing. He also sort of liked to do little unnecessary digs at Christianity, just occasionally. And I understand if you're talking about the conquistadors or whatever, and if they're doing horrible things, yeah, because they were, they were Catholic and they came in, they did bad things, right? Or, the British coming in but he wouldn't, it wouldn't just be that. He was actually kind of maybe a little bit more objective. But every once in a while, he would just pull in some weird analogy or something, and it would be a dig. It's a minor point, but it irritated me, and I was already a little bit irritated by the organization and feeling like parts of it were a bit of a slog. So that just sort of made me a little bit more unhappy with the book. But overall, I am glad I read it, and it's a ton of information in here. Lots of stuff that I did not know about. For instance, they think that the Americas were far more populated than originally, because what happened was, with the initial contact with Europeans, even before they started colonizing and going in and exploring, those initial contacts spread disease, and the Native Americans were having smallpox plagues where it was just decimating whole areas before the Europeans got in. So then when the Europeans got in, they thought that it wasn't a very populated place. They thought it was kind of empty. But it was because of these, years before they'd had these plagues come through. Because it took a while before they started actually exploring. They were fishing and stuff up and down the coast. And so, but it turns out that Native Americans do not have, and it's an anomaly in the world genetically, they do not have quite the immune system that other people have. So, so on top of meeting diseases that they didn't evolve to deal with, they also have this. He went into the genetics and everything, so I guess this is, the cutting edge of science on this. They simply do not have the immune defenses to ward off a lot of diseases, and that's why just getting like a common cold or something could wipe them out. So so that was really interesting. And the other big point is that Native Americans did a way more land management and actually changing the landscape than we give them credit for. They, in North America, they did a lot of fire burning, a forest burning. They would do controlled burns. They did a lot of earthworks, especially like in the Amazon, now that they're cutting down a lot of the trees in order to, I guess, for cattle farming or whatever, and it's a big crisis. But they're actually uncovering these ancient earthworks. That's the other thing. They think that Native Americans were here for a lot longer than we originally thought they were. Anyway, it was very interesting, full of facts. I would give it like 3.5 stars. It was kind of a slog, and I decided to And the other thing I found out about myself is that while the Mayans and the Incas and the Aztecs are all interesting, I really wanted to learn more about North American Indians, and they're just not featured in this. I don't think there's the same archaeological focus on them because they didn't have these big cities. There was one big city, it seems. And so they just haven't studied them as much. So that's just like the least amount of focus is on North American Indians. And so that was a little bit disappointing because I realized that I really wanted to know more than maybe they know. I don't know. So anyway, so that's my review of that. I'm kind of losing my train of thought. And then the last thing, oh boy, hold on, I gotta get my Kindle up again. The last thing for Janellathon, I decided to read a book by Mary Roberts Reinhardt. Wait, I gotta get a drink of water. Okay. Because she was somebody that I knew Janelle appreciated, and I really like Mary Roberts Reinhardt. So she's called the Agatha Christie of America, but she actually wrote before Agatha Christie. She wrote tons of mysteries. They're all set kind of in the northeast of kind of like a fictional Pittsburgh or maybe New York, kind of varies. She's the one that coined the phrase, "the butler did it." She was really prolific, and she didn't just write mysteries, she wrote straight up novels, and she also wrote some comedies, really funny books. I love her writing style. I just absolutely love it, and I love this one too. I thought it was about a hotel, but it's not. The White Cat is a political party, a political club, rather, and The Window at the White Cat is a mystery. I mean, not only is there a murder, but there is an abduction, there's a theft, just like all this stuff is going on. And I did not guess who was doing it. Well, I kind of sort of did for one of the things, but anyway, I love the atmosphere. I love the way she writes. It's strangely modern, even though this book came out in 1910. Although there was a really dated thing, a dated kind of form of lie detector from 1910, which was interesting to read about. But yeah, Mary Roberts Reinhardt, I really, really like her. I went through a phase where I read a lot of her books years ago, and then I discovered that Janelle also liked her. And I remember I read The Breaking Point, which is a novel, kind of a mysterious novel, but it's not really a mystery. And I remember talking about that with Janelle. So this was my Janellathon read. So now it's July 2nd, and all these things have started. Sustainability July and Jane Austen July, and I'm back reading Sense and Sensibility, and I'm reading Hornblower. And for Historathon, so far for the first 2 quarters of Historathon, I read about Neanderthal Man, which is a huge compilation of all the archaeological information about Neanderthal Man. And then I read this big compilation of archaeological findings on Native Americans. So I decided maybe I'm done with these huge compilations of archaeological investigations, and instead I'm going to read more topical stuff. So for this 3rd quarter. So for Jane Austen July, I'm going to read Uproar by Alex Loxton, Satire, Scandal, and Printmakers in George and London. So I've said this before. I follow her on Instagram. She's wonderful. I really, really like her. So I'm going to read that. And then I think maybe later in this 3rd quarter of Historathon, I'm going to read or reread Longitude by Dava. I think it's Dava Sobel. I saw Mark at Book Time with Elvis mention it, and I read that years ago, and I barely remember it. And since I'm reading so much nautical fiction, that's just appeals to me. I'm in the mood. Maybe it's because I just came back from the beach, but I'm in the mood for nautical stuff. So I think I'll read Longitude or reread Longitude for Historathon for the 3rd quarter as well. So I think that's it. I covered it all, right? Hornblower 2023, Historathon, Janellathon, and then of course we've got Jane Austen July and Sustainability July. But I don't need to talk about that right now. Okay, so I will talk to you later. I hope you're doing well, and happy reading.